When I pulled up my mountain road that morning, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. The air was sharp and clean, the kind that usually fills you with peace. But this time, it hit like a punch to the gut. My house, my $3 million timber mansion that I'd built with my late wife, was gone. Not burned, not vandalized. Gone, flattened into piles of splintered wood and twisted steel. The smoke rising from the rubble was still fresh, and the worst part? Under that rubble was the stone fireplace where I'd buried her ashes. Someone had bulldozed not just my home, but the one piece of her I had left, and all because of unpaid HOA fines. Except I wasn't even part of their damn HOA. I remember standing there, hands shaking, the mountain completely silent, except for the crunch of gravel under my boots. The sign on a truck parked nearby read, Summit Ridge HOA, Community Compliance. It was almost comical. They had tried to hide it behind the trees like some kid hiding a broken vase. I'm not the kind of man who loses his temper easily. I've spent years in public service, trained to keep a straight face no matter what. But that morning, my heart went cold. Not angry, not panicked, just cold. I told myself, don't yell, don't act. Build the case. So, I started there, data before emotion. I'd designed my own security system, solar, powered, independent from any grid. I opened the remote server on my phone, scrolling through motion alerts. 3 days earlier, there it was, a white work truck at my gate. Some guy in a reflective vest taped an orange paper to the post. An hour later, a bulldozer rolled up my driveway. Then came the crew, laughing, drinking coffee, walking around like they owned the place. "You sure this is the right house?" one of them asked. "Got the county order right here?" another said. And then, the sound of walls shattering. My wife used to read by that bay window they smashed first. I could almost hear her voice in the back of my head. "You'll keep the house safe, won't you?" I didn't call the sheriff. Not yet. I knew who had done this. Madeline Pierce, president of the Summit Ridge HOA. Queen of rules and petty power. She'd sent me letters before. Complaints about my unapproved flagpole, about the color of my roof, about how my structure violated HOA harmony. The woman lived half a mile downhill, but somehow thought she ruled the entire mountain. I'd ignored her. And that, apparently, was my mistake. I drove straight to the county records office in town, walked past the receptionist who recognized me but didn't say a word. I didn't go there as a politician or an engineer. I went there as a man whose home had been erased. Within an hour, I had the plat maps spread across a table. My parcel, Lot 27B, was clearly recorded a full year before the HOA even existed. The HOA's incorporation date was printed right there, December 2012. My deed was signed and recorded May 2011, legally. I was never theirs to control. I snapped photos of everything and left. Back at the mailbox by the county road, I found a thick envelope from the HOA. Inside, a final notice of enforcement. It listed violations that didn't even exist: $2,500 for an unpermitted flagpole, $5,000 for a non-compliant roof, and another $4,320 in late fees. Over 11 grand in made-up nonsense. They'd built a paper trail of lies to justify what they did. Standing there in the wind, flipping through those pages, I realized something. They hadn't made a mistake. They'd executed a plan. That night, I sat in my storage unit under a single flickering bulb. I spread out every legal paper I owned. The deed, the permits, the fire inspection reports. Each one was a piece of armor. But even with all that proof in front of me, there was a moment, just one, where doubt slipped in. What if this wasn't fixable? What if I'd lost everything Sarah and I built? Maybe it was time to walk away, buy some quiet cabin somewhere else, pretend this never happened. The thought burned. I could almost hear her laugh, soft, teasing. You never walked away from a fight in your life, Liam. And that's when it clicked. I didn't need rage. I needed precision. 3 nights later, I walked into the HOA's monthly meeting. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled like burnt coffee and fake air freshener. 15 residents sat in folding chairs, half asleep. At the front, there she was, Madeline Pierce, gray blazer, perfect hair, clipboard like a scepter. She was in her element, lecturing about mailbox paint shades and trash can placement. Then she smiled that smug little smile and said, "I'm pleased to announce we've resolved a long-standing compliance issue. The derelict property up the hill has been cleared for safety reasons." That was my cue. I stood up. Chairs creaked. "That derelict property was my home," I said, calm and clear. The room froze. "And you had no authority to touch it." Madeline blinked, trying to recover. "Excuse me? We acted under an emergency order from the county. Your property was annexed years ago." I walked right past her to the bulletin board behind the table. There, pinned neatly, was the same orange notice I'd seen in the video, and right below it, a letter supposedly from the county. The seal was wrong. The font was wrong. Even the watermark was missing. "You forged this," I said quietly, snapping a picture with my phone. "This is public property, right? I'm just documenting your evidence." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence in that room was heavy. I turned to leave and said one last thing. "Madeline, you didn't just demolish a house. You declared war on the wrong man." The next morning, I met with an old friend, Henry, a retired county planner, over diner coffee. I laid out the documents. He adjusted his glasses, ran a finger along the map lines, and said, "Liam, this is as clear as daylight. Your lot predates their jurisdiction. They can't annex you without a notarized consent filed at my office, and you sure as hell never signed one." He wrote and signed an affidavit on the spot. Receipt number 1. Receipt number 2 came from a digital forensics analyst. I gave him a high-res photo of the county letter. A day later, he called. "You're gonna like this," he said. The file's metadata traced back to Madeline's personal laptop, created Tuesday, 11:12 p.m. on her home Y. She didn't just download a fake letterhead, she built it herself. Forgery. A felony. The third came from the title company. No liens, no debts, no record of any HOA claim. The so-called unpaid fines didn't legally exist. And the fourth, this one sealed her fate, was from my friend Victor, a structural engineer. He surveyed the site and showed me how their reckless demolition had destabilized the slope. "One heavy rain," he said, "and that whole hillside could slide down, right onto their homes." Madeline hadn't just broken the law. She'd endangered her entire neighborhood. When she called an emergency meeting to clarify misinformation, the local news was already waiting outside. I might have sent them a little something. The drone footage Victor took, showing the wreckage and the crack slicing down the hillside. The headline practically wrote itself. I walked into that meeting mid-speech. She was shaking, voice cracking as she insisted everything had been done for safety. I stepped forward, plugged in a projector, and let the truth play out on the screen. County maps proving I was never part of the HOA. Certified title reports. The forged letter side by side with a real one. Then the metadata screen, with her name printed right there as the creator. Her followers started murmuring. One board member turned pale. I looked at Madeline and said, "You impersonated a county officer. You destroyed private property, and you put your entire community at risk." She tried one last time. "You're twisting." I cut her off. "Madeline, I'm the governor of this state." You could feel the air vanish. People gasped. Her clipboard slipped from her hands and hit the floor. A young woman at the table, Dana, I think, stood up trembling and said, "I resign." I told her we needed real documents. Then she walked out. Madeline's face turned ghost white. I left her there, drowning in whispers and flashing camera lights. The lawsuit that followed wasn't a fight. It was a formality. 6 thick binders of evidence, each one labeled, indexed, undeniable. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, flipped through the exhibits with the calm of someone watching a slow-motion car crash. Exhibit A, my deed and the HOA's late incorporation date. Exhibit B, the forged letter, traced to Madeline's laptop. Exhibit C, video evidence of the demolition. Exhibit D, Victor's engineering report showing the landslide risk. By Exhibit E, her lawyer had stopped objecting. When the judge finally looked up, she sighed. "Belief," she said, "is not a defense for forgery and destruction of private property." The ruling hit like thunder. The HOA was ordered to pay $4.8 million in damages, plus the cost of rebuilding my house and stabilizing the hillside. They were also forced to post a public apology for 12 months straight. And as the gavel dropped, a deputy quietly walked up behind Madeline and clicked the handcuffs shut. The district attorney had already filed criminal charges. I didn't feel joy, just a calm, steady weight lifting off my chest. The mountain had a way of balancing things. It always did. A year later, I stood on the new deck, overlooking the same valley. The house looked almost identical to the old one, except this time the foundation was deeper, the beams stronger. The stone fireplace had been rebuilt from the same quarry, with a small bronze plaque at the base. For Emma, built with love, rebuilt with purpose. Her ashes rested safely inside the foundation now untouchable. Down in the valley, the Summit Ridge HOA was no more. The residents voted to dissolve it after being crushed by the massive payout. The old clubhouse, once Madeline's throne room, was turned into a community workshop, run by volunteers. And Madeline herself, she lost her home, her position, her reputation. She served 6 months in county jail and came out a ghost of who she used to be. I didn't chase revenge. I just made sure the truth did its work. Because truth, once it's documented, doesn't need to shout, it just waits for the light. Sometimes I sit by the new fireplace, the flag outside rustling in the wind, and I think about everything that happened. The lies, the arrogance, the quiet power of paper over ego. They tore my house down to prove they could. So, I rebuilt it stronger, to prove I still would. Lesson learned. You don't fight tyranny with anger. You fight it with receipts.